So George, do you find that you deal with people who say they have problems with focusing or concentrating?
Yes, I do actually, and that does get in the way of succeeding in life because you have to be able to hold the space and concentrate on what you're doing. And with technology and social media, a lot of people allow themselves to easily distract and not get into and make decisions and see things through so that they're actually achieving in their life, you know?
But do you also find that a lot of those people might be quite creative? That their
Very.
thoughts are going all over the place because they're just coming up with new and different ideas.
Very much so. And I get a lot of people who say they've been diagnosed or they're on medication for ADHD as well. But for me, I struggle to live with trying to hold a label to someone because I just see how they're relating to themselves and their environment. And Joe, there's usually a story there of why they're restless, why they're not knowing how to be grounded enough and allow those ideas to serve them better so that they're going somewhere. And usually it's got nothing to do with needing to freeze them into a label.
For most of human history, it wasn't an expectation that children would sit for 6 hours a day in a classroom. It's just not what they did until the late 1800s. And there are ideas that the school system or the education system as it's currently configured owes most of its sort of current genre to Bismarck in, I think, the late 1800s, and it was all seen as a way of producing employees for the Industrial Revolution. So you would get people used to taking orders, sitting, following instruction, learning certain things, and look, absolutely, we need to learn how to read and write and add up, and sometimes in schools I think they still occasionally do that, but never mind. But doing it for hours on end is not something that everybody can do. And it doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong with those people. We find, a lot of very successful people, somebody like Richard Branson, for example, didn't do very well in school. There are a lot of people who've been enormously successful, particularly in a creative sense, who didn't really want to sit and listen to existing ideas because they were too busy thinking about the next new idea. But the other problem is that the education curriculums have become quite sort of narrowed down. What's expected is being narrowed down, for various ridiculous legal reasons. It's hard to get kids to play sport these days, and especially for boys, they need to be letting off steam and letting off energy. If they're then not able to sit for hours rigidly listening in a class, there's potential for them to get bored, to act up, to misbehave, and then it can become a sort of railroad to the diagnosis of ADHD with the then associated use of medication. And the catch becomes that if you give people a medication that changes how their brain works, then it will change their behaviour. So sure, when a lot of these children, boys in particular, are placed on these medications, it changes their behaviour. You drink alcohol, it'll change your behaviour. If you take marijuana, it'll change your behaviour. But it doesn't mean you had a medical problem to start with.
Yeah. Look, Joe, I know some people who are anti-labelling, they're anti the idea that you should rush to medication, but they had a child and they tried everything and they really, really were pushed to a point where they needed it. And so for me, I'm thankful for these people, for me to stay grounded and not getting on some high horse that, it's really important for us to know that it's just oversubscribed.
And that's really the key, that there is there is a small percentage of children who may well benefit from medication. In America, it's estimated that some 1 in 5 boys have been diagnosed with ADHD. In Australia, it's sort of estimated to be between 1 in 10 and 1 in 15. Now, I don't think one can say that those numbers are probably realistic. And when you look at how the criteria to make that diagnosis have been broadened and broadened and broadened, if we look at them, things like often fidgets, blurts out answers, doesn't like to wait in turn, I think that describes a lot of us. So as the criteria to make a diagnosis get broader and broader, the ability for people to be diagnosed gets easier and easier. So we catch more people in the net who really than should be in that net.
And you know what, Joe? Someone said to me once, not that long ago, 2 years ago, that he was concerned that I had ADHD. and because he had it too. And he brings out his medication, and he's in his early 60s, and he felt like he was really trying to help me. So I, not wanting to assume and get all upset that he's trying to label me, I really knew he was coming from a good place. So I decided to do my own little research to go, well, do I have ADHD? So I looked at the symptoms, and as I went through them, I go, my goodness gracious me, this is describing the human race. And then when I went, but I focus really well, like I'm able to hold a focus on things. And oh no, well there's a hyper focus description as well to cover that as well. And I thought, gosh, you can't escape being diagnosed if you're not careful.
Essentially, it's what I call at least, the medicalization of life, that we look at human behavior and things that human beings just do, and we put a medical label on them, and then you can sell them a drug. It's a problem.
It is. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you like Healthy Minded, please subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yeah, and share with your friends. Please put comments below whether you agree, disagree, if you've got topics you'd like for the future. And until next time, stay healthy minded.